They decided to have a group scene, but then I did a good job on her mommy. My name is David, and I'm 26 years old. My wife, Olivia, is 24, and together we've built a life that revolves around love, laughter, and animals. We run a dog and cat sanctuary, a dream we turned into a reality after discovering our shared passion for rescuing and rehabilitating pets. It's a lot of work, sure, but it never feels like work. It feels like a calling. Actually, the sanctuary is how Olivia and I met. When I was in college, there was a pet show on campus, and I brought Abrams, my big, sweet Rottweiler, to show off. Olivia noticed him right away. She came over, asked a million questions about him, and the next thing I knew, we were sitting on the grass and talking for hours about our favorite breeds, funny pet stories, and our dreams of working with animals. By the time the sun went down, I knew there was something special about her. Abrams seemed to know it too. He never bonded so quickly with strangers, but with Olivia, he was friends forever. It's been many years. Olivia and I are a team in every sense of the word. When we're not running the shelter, we're heading out on rescue missions, fundraising, or coordinating adoptions. Our home is often filled with the wagging tails and soft purrs of foster kittens. Some people might call it chaos, but for us, it's perfect. Despite our busy schedules, we've always found time for family. I respect his dedication. Olivia and Joseph have been at odds for years. Olivia's love of animals often clashed with Joseph's stories of hunting, and she generally avoided the subject at family gatherings. Joseph, to his credit, toned it down when he realized she was uncomfortable with it. Still, there was always a certain tension in the air whenever the two of them were in the same room. That began to change on Joseph's last birthday. We were at a family gathering, and for the first time, Olivia and Joseph had a real conversation. It started with dogs, specifically hunting breeds, and quickly escalated into a lively discussion of rare dog traits and training methods. I remember watching them and feeling a little surprised. Olivia had rolled her eyes at Joseph's obsession with hunting for years, but here she was, laughing at his jokes and even teasing him about his tactical gear. After that, their relationship changed. Olivia began to see Joseph in a new light, not as someone who was at odds with her values, but as someone who was deeply passionate about his own. Joseph, for his part, also softened around her. He no longer felt the need to brag about his hunting exploits or show off his latest gear. Instead, he found common ground with Olivia through their shared love of fitness. But then something changed. Little, subtle signs. Like Olivia started dressing up a little more when she went to the gym. New leggings, matching Nike Pro sports bras, and she spent more time doing her hair than usual. It was subtle enough that I could ignore it. Or maybe I wanted to. After all, we were happy. Or at least I thought we were. But then there were the phone calls. Olivia would leave the room or go out to get them, saying they were safe house stuff. I didn't think much of it until one day, Joseph's name popped up on her phone while it was charging in the kitchen. He texted her, "Good to see you today. Same time tomorrow?" I couldn't help but feel a twinge of something. Was it jealousy? Doubt? Whatever it was, I tried to convince myself it was nothing. The first real blow came during dinner a few weeks later. I told her how lucky I was to have her in my life, and she smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "You're cute, David," she said, but her voice was empty. I brushed it off, telling myself I was overthinking things. People have off days. But then came the night she came home late from the gym. It was almost 10 p.m., and her usual glow had been replaced by flushed cheeks and tousled hair. "Sorry," she said, breathlessly. I lost track of time. I asked if Joseph was staying too, and she hesitated a second longer. "Yeah, we were finishing up cardio." Her laugh was strained, and I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. The turning point came one afternoon when I decided to surprise her at the gym. I left work early and thought it would be fun to join her and Joseph, maybe bond with my brother in the process. But when I walked in, the girl at the front desk looked at me strangely. "Olivia? She left about half an hour ago." So did Joseph. I froze. My mind raced on the way home. I didn't want to jump to conclusions, but I couldn't ignore the pit of my stomach. When I got home, Olivia's car was already in the driveway. I walked in to find her between Olivia and my brother. I started paying closer attention to what was going on. Her messages were always blocked, and she had taken to holding her phone face down. When I casually asked if she and Joseph had hung out outside the gym, she became defensive. "What kind of interrogation?" she snapped, waving me off before I could respond. That's when I decided I wanted answers. But how could I get them? But then things got a little complicated. It all started when Olivia mentioned someone new at the gym, a trainer named Sophia. She talked about her a lot. Sophia seemed like a whirlwind of energy, jumping from client to client with a cheerful, no-nonsense attitude that everyone seemed to enjoy. Olivia described her as someone who could turn anyone into an athlete, and I could tell she admired her. "Sophia's amazing," Olivia said one evening. "She helped me with my squat technique. I didn't even realize how much I was doing wrong." I smiled, though I couldn't help but feel a little left out. "Maybe I should meet her sometime," I said casually. "You should. She's so friendly." "Oh, and Joseph knows her, too. He said they went to the same school." That caught my attention. "Really? Small world." "Yeah, he seemed surprised to see her there, but they catch up on their workouts. It's nice to have someone else in that circle." I tried not to make a big deal out of it, but it was hard not to notice that Joseph's name kept coming up in these conversations. First, he was her gym buddy, and now they had this shared connection in Sophia. I wasn't sure what to think. I first met Sophia at a sports event Olivia had insisted we attend, an open house of sorts where members could bring guests. Sophia greeted me with an easy smile, her curly hair pulled back into a high ponytail. She was as charismatic as Olivia had described, chatting with everyone and effortlessly making them feel included. "David, right?" she said, shaking my hand. "Olivia told me all about you. The guy from the animal shelter." "It's me," I said. "It's nice to meet you, Sophia." For the most part, the event was fun. Olivia introduced me to some of her gym friends, and I even tried out a few exercises under her guidance. Joseph was there, too, as usual, and I couldn't help but notice how relaxed he seemed around Sophia. They traded jokes and laughed a lot, although, to be fair, Joseph always had a way of charming people. Still, something about the way Sophia fit into their dynamic made me feel uneasy. Was it jealousy? Insecurity? I couldn't put my finger on it, but the feeling lingered. Then it was time for the hike. Olivia suggested that we join a group hike Sophia was organizing, featuring regulars from the gym and their friends. It sounded like a nice change of pace, so I agreed, hoping it would ease my worries. The day of the hike was sunny and crisp, perfect for exploring the trails around the local lake. Sophia led the group, her enthusiasm infectious as she pointed out landmarks and shared interesting facts about the area. Olivia and Joseph walked ahead of me, chatting with Sophia while I hung back with some of the other participants. That's when I met the person who would make the day more interesting, a guy named Ethan. He was tall, fit, and had a quiet confidence. We struck up a conversation easily, discussing everything from hiking gear to our favorite movies. "You're Olivia's husband, right?" Ethan asked at one point. "Yeah," I said, looking ahead to where he and Joseph were walking side by side. "How do you know her?" "Yeah, not really. I'm friends with Sophia. She dragged me here, told me I needed to get out more." He chuckled, then added, "Though it seems like your brother knows her pretty well." The comment caught me off guard. "Joseph?" "Yeah, they went to high school together." Ethan raised an eyebrow. Interesting. Sophia didn't mention that." I wanted to brush it off, but the way Ethan said it stuck with me. Why hadn't Sophia mentioned knowing Joseph, especially if they'd met again at the gym? It wasn't a big deal, but it added another layer to the uneasiness I was feeling. The hike itself had been uneventful, but my mind was racing the entire time. I couldn't help but notice how comfortable Olivia and Joseph seemed with each other. At one point, Joseph had helped her along a tricky section of the trail, lingering on her arm a little longer than I thought was necessary. Maybe it was a small thing. Maybe I was just overthinking it. After the hike, Sophia invited the group to a nearby cafe for coffee. Ethan and I sat together again, and as we talked, I realized he was as observant as I was. "You're quiet," he said, sipping his coffee. "Something on your mind?" "Not really," I lied. Ethan studied me for a moment, then leaned in slightly. "Can I ask you something?" "Sure. Does it ever bother you? How close are your wife and your brother?" The question hit me like a punch in the gut. I stared at him, trying to discern his intent, Was he just making a comment, or had he seen something I hadn't noticed? They're family, I said carefully. They spend more time together, but that's not a bad thing. Ethan nodded slowly. Fair enough. It just seemed, I don't know, worth asking. The conversation stuck in my head long after we'd parted ways. Ethan didn't say anything outright, but his words echoed the doubts I was trying to suppress. Was I making something out of nothing, or was there something truly unusual about Olivia and Joseph's closeness? The next few weeks brought more questions. Olivia began spending more evenings at the gym, often telling me she was working late with Sophia on a new fitness challenge. When I asked if Joseph was involved, she would shrug and say, sometimes. Why? No reason, I would answer, though my mind was racing with all the possible reasons. I decided to channel my unease into action. If I couldn't shake the feeling, I would find a way to deal with it directly. I began joining them at the gym more often, hoping to better understand their dynamic. At the same time, I tried to connect with Sophia and Ethan, figuring that the more I learned about their circle, the clearer everything would become. One day, the truth came out. It started out as a normal morning in our busy, routine lives. Olivia was rushing off to practice, and I was staying behind to take care of the animals. Olivia asked me to get something from her gym bag, a water bottle or an extra towel, I can't remember, and that's when I saw it. A small packet of birth control and a tube of lube, hidden at the bottom of her bag. I froze. My mind was racing, coming up with 100 different conclusions, none of them good. I could have contradicted her right then and there, but I didn't. I wanted to understand the full picture before I acted. She'd always claimed that she wasn't on any kind of birth control because we were just seeing how things go. My heart sank at the sight of that packet, but I told myself to stay calm. Maybe there was an explanation. Maybe it wasn't what it seemed. And yet, something inside me snapped in that moment. This was no longer just a casual observation or a passing suspicion. It was a sign that I needed to take action. After Olivia left for the gym, I stood in the living room, staring at the door she'd just walked through. That's when I decided I couldn't keep this to myself. I needed help, someone to watch the shelter while I figured out what to do next. And there was only one person I trusted enough to call. Olivia's mother, Clara. Clara had always been supportive of our work with the shelter, often stepping in to help with the animals when we were feeling down. She was the kind of woman who exuded elegance and poise, even after years of living on her own after her husband left. She arrived less than 15 minutes later, her perfectly coiffed hair and crisp white blouse a stark contrast to my rumpled state. "You look like you've seen a ghost, David," Clara said, walking in and looking around. I shook my head, forcing a weak smile. "Nothing like that. I just need to run something, and I could use your help." "Sure," she said. "You know I'm always happy to help." I thanked her, grabbed my keys, and headed to the gym, trying to shake off the knot of anxiety in my chest. My plan was simple. I'd tell Olivia I'd surprise her by working out with her. That was it. No confrontation, no accusations. I just needed to see for myself. The gym was bustling with activity when I arrived. People were running on the treadmills, the music was blaring, and the air was filled with the clank of weights. I changed into my workout clothes to fit in, then began casually pacing the room, looking for Olivia. I didn't see her on the machines or in the weightlifting area. My stomach twisted as I headed toward the showers. That's when I heard it. Faint voices, muffled but unmistakable. Even over the pounding music, I recognized the laughter. It was Olivia and Joseph. I hesitated, my heart pounding in my ears. A third voice joined in, light and teasing, "Sophia." That's when it all started to click into place. I moved closer, the tile floor cool beneath my feet. Their voices became clearer as I approached the row of shower stalls. I pulled back the curtain in one of the stalls, and there they were, Olivia, Sophia, and Joseph, the two girls kneeling in front of him, savoring his world seemed to tilt to the side. My throat tightened, and I couldn't breathe. They froze when they saw me, their faces a mixture of shock and panic. "David," Olivia began, but I didn't wait for her to continue. I turned and walked away, their voices following me down the hall, calling my name, trying to explain. But I couldn't hear them over the roar in my head. I left the gym and drove home in silence, gripping the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles turned white. When I walked through the door, Clara noticed right away that something was wrong. She was in the kitchen, preparing a tray of treats for the animals, but she stopped when she saw my face. "What happened?" she asked, her voice full of worry. I sank into a chair at the table, holding my head in my hands. "Clara, I don't even know how to say this." She sat down across from me, her eyes searching mine. "Tell me." I told her everything, about the contraceptives, the suspicions, and what I'd just seen at the gym. As I spoke, I saw her expression change from disbelief to grief. Tears welled up in her eyes, spilling out as she shook her head. "I don't understand," Clara whispered. "Olivia was always so down-to-earth, so responsible. She's been my rock since her father left." "I don't understand either," I said, my voice breaking, "but I can't keep this quiet any longer." Somehow, we opened a bottle of wine. One glass turned into two, then three. We sat at the table for hours, sharing stories, confessions, and fears. Clara told me about her own struggles after her husband left, the loneliness, the doubts, the moments when she wondered if she was enough. "You deserve better," Clara said, her hand lightly resting on mine. Her touch was warm, comforting. I don't know what came over me then. Maybe it was the wine, or the vulnerability we shared, but when Clara leaned in and kissed me, I didn't pull away. "Let's show her what she's missing," Clara whispered, her voice low and even. That day, everything I thought I knew about my life and myself was shattered. Clara and I spent the next day together, in a whirlwind of passion and despair. She enjoyed my dominance over her in bed, leaving the responsibility entirely to me, and I enjoyed her lush form and experience. But that night, the front door opened and Olivia and Joseph walked in. Time seemed to stand still as they looked at us, a mixture of shock and anger on their faces. "David," Olivia said, her voice shaking, "what's going on here?" I stood up, my heart pounding, and said the only thing I could, "I think we all have some explaining to do."